is David. It's great to have you with us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, David Williams is an investor. He's a forecaster, a page trader, and he's joining us to get into what's playing out in terms of crude. David, first, in terms of the fundamentals, and then I want to talk price with you. What are the bulls holding on to at this point, and what do you see supporting prices?
Beside the technicals, everything that this administration has done. That's what I see supporting the prices right now.
Well, Go ahead. I was going to say they have cracked down initially. That started things off and certainly sent some of what we've seen in terms of the energy crisis into a little bit of a tailspin. Now we're looking at the VIX here right now. It hasn't necessarily rattled investors' confidence or certainty because we were just talking about the indices to new all-time highs. But as far as levels in crude, we had seen a nice run up recently into the mid-85 handle, but it's kind of backed off since.
Yeah, Ben, on our last program with you on October 14th, we noted that crude was in a peculiarly strong position in our work, having broken out to new recent highs prior to November. And at that time, crude was trading at about $81. I noted to you that the crude would first advance to 86, and then later we expect an advance to $91. On October 25th, crude made an attempt at 86 with the high of 85.41. We hope you'll forgive us the small miss, but we think crude still remains in a very strong position with a further test. We think of $85. We're pretty close to it now, Ben, but we think a further test of $85 or higher likely into November 4th, plus or minus a day or so.
You know, most notable here in terms of this price activity, we started off the show looking at the indices, and they have just been surging higher. Okay, steadily, progressively higher, but one could describe it as a grind, but certainly surging in terms of conviction to the upside. Can you talk to us about how crude also, again, holding these upper levels, as you mentioned, really no indication that the trend has been invalidated, that uptrend that we've been seeing?
Yeah, you know, Ben, originally we felt that crude under more normal conditions, not such a strong market, normally it would have had a correction into November. But the fact that they broke out in November to new highs put them in a really strong position. And as you and I have spoken so many times about the somewhat unusual correlation between the S&P and crude, both markets are steadily moving higher. I like to say that a slow market is not a weak market, and the S&P has been grinding higher as well. So at this juncture, we tend to think that the S&P is still not done on the upside. And although the number I'm about to give you is very nearby, really, we would not be surprised to see the $4,626 to $4,628 or higher during this week. It's relatively nearby. We're at 46.14 right now, but it kind of explains that we still are bullish on the S&P, with the caveat that this week for us, Ben, is the on-time week for a weekly top in our timing models for the market. So that puts some caution on the plate for us during this week once we achieve somewhat higher prices.
Okay, real quick, I want to dive into that expectation or that thought process in terms of how, my guess, David, you're not necessarily calling this as a sell signal, just as you mentioned, or kind of finish that thought with, it brings a little caution into some of the rally, the bid activity we've seen. Before you comment on that, though, we just pointed out, or had a chart up here. Earlier, we looked at the crude. While you were speaking to those points, we looked at the intraday. It's not just a nice move up off the overnight lows that we've seen. This move continues higher. A quick look again at the weekly time frame. And I like the fact that you tie the ES into this, because here's the weekly time frame off the lows that we saw, the pandemic lows, and you mentioned the breakout this fall. I just want to point out here that, well, a big reason why we're discussing this, and I'm glad again that you did bring those crude levels into, or the ES levels into, because here's a chart that I talk a lot about here, and how again these two track each other so very closely. And well, with crude, the ES trending to the upside, a reflection of that risk on sentiment, we're seeing certainly crude being supported. David, you said 46.14 is the key level that you've got your eye on to the upside right now?
No, actually, we're trading at 46.14 on the Globex session, as you know. We're thinking we're going to see 46.25 to 46.28, you know, something. It's nearby, but during this week, we think they're likely going to get to those levels, and we'll continue to make our continuation calls. But I do want to reference the weekly top. The weekly top actually will, for us, probably denote a sell signal, but it has to also be tied in with important prices. So we're going to let the week get started here. We're starting on a great note. I mean, really, this is a beautiful start to the week. This is November 1st. But later this week, we're going to start taking a look at important price levels that we might be looking for a multi-week sideways to lower motion off of a weekly top that would be due in the week of November 1st. So we'll keep in track with that, and hopefully next time on your program, we can address that.